President Trump's Venezuela policy has many problems. The risk of invading a country and extracting its foreign leader, which is an act of war. Claiming to use war powers for oil, something that U.S. presidents of both parties have denied over a series of wars, because at the end of the day, we may be a divided country, but most Americans agree that we don't want to risk American lives just for cheaper oil. There's also the total failure to plan for the long term after taking Maduro out of the country. So there's a lot of that stuff. We've covered some of it. Tonight, we're going to turn to another different and specific problem. How Trump and his team often seem more focused on the PR and sort of online hyping of this operation than the actual war powers and bombing that they're conducting. The White House has released pictures for promotion on Trump's social media and other sites. We, of course, saw this photo. MS Now hasn't independently verified it, but it has been widely seen as the real photo from the president showing off his capture. We've also seen the touting by Trump's war team in its makeshift Situation Room. They put these photos out very quickly as part of their narrative of look how they're doing. And this operation killed dozens. It put Americans in harm's way. And remember, the U.S. oversees 17 intelligence agencies with all sorts of info and intel. And yet, rather than using that material during the raid, Trump's team took space away from those sources and had this odd feed up of X, the social media app, formerly Twitter, during this activity. You can see the emoji there. You can see someone typed in Venezuela in the search bar. We don't know if they had anyone on hand to, translate Spanish of what people might have been tweeting, whether it was true or not. Another angle shows X right behind the CIA director. This unusual use of cherished space on the big screen in that security setting has drawn all kinds of mockery and concern. Trump's overall glee reflects an interest in the ongoing spectacle and his own personal power over the substance and the stakes. A writer, Don Moynihan, likens all of this to a new clicktatorship. Trump aides not just using social media to shape a narrative, but many of its members seem to be, quote, deeply addicted to it. The images coming from Homeland Security under Nome, for example, the way Pete Hegseth, who was a big sort of media guy before all this, TV and social media, have already drawn mockery long before Venezuela, because it has been very noticeable how interested these people with very serious jobs seem to be on a daily basis, obsessed with PR and social media. And they got this brutal South Park mockery.
What's up, guys? This is Pete Hegseth, the Department of War. We're here to infiltrate this police station and extract a POI, because that's what we do.
That's what Homeland Security does. Be sure to like and subscribe, guys. We've got
Oh, no. This is not your content. Everyone like and subscribe to the Department of War.
Acting like a tough guy, posting it around the world. Making lots of content like a little teenage girl. Pete Hegseth.
You can see that's a parody. We had to bleep out some part, but this is how they're actually conducting war. Prominent DOJ official under Trump at Civil Rights says, what kind of content do my folks want to see more of? To like and share. Like and subscribe, as they said in the mockery version. DOJ's leader, Pam Bondi, brought notes to a Senate hearing that seemed completely focused on getting social media zingers, which senators noticed.
Having you respond with completely irrelevant far-right internet talking points really is not very helpful here.
This tendency has been on display. The White House uses kind of misleading text slop and very offensive attacks to put out ridiculous material. These are on taxpayer-funded accounts. This is not some concern about campaign tactics. You can say what you want, but this is your tax dollars being used for these kind of ridiculous and, on the lower right, racist imagery. The propaganda also, of course, is designed to shock and thus help it go viral. Here's a DHS post where they compared immigrant enforcement to the Halo video game, except that's not, of course, about human beings. It's about players who fight or round up actual parasitic non-human aliens. The process is nihilistic. All of this has a dehumanizing effect. Notes an Atlantic article. Stories about people or countries in conflict become abstract, buried under a pile of memes and recursive references that exist for little more than this sort of, quote, scroll-by entertainment. Like so many Trump offenses, he's not hiding it. The longtime reality show figure likens, again, a life and death operation which could have cost American lives. They certainly were in danger. They killed dozens of people on the ground in Venezuela. He likens it all, naturally, to a fictional TV show.
If you would have seen what happened, I mean, I watched it literally like I was watching a television show.
But it's not a TV show, even if it's on TV. And it is not a harmless, entertaining exchange of supposedly clever quips online, even though nowadays everything we can see and share does also exist online. There's a bigger problem here. It is corrosive, and on the spectrum of how outraged people might want to be, it is clearly worse when American soldiers are being put in harm's way, sometimes specifically in the pursuit of more clicks for the president and his aides with their self-videoing phones.
Well, I think it's the obsession with content at any cost. And now the cost of this obsession is getting higher and higher and higher. Governments are getting toppled. People are getting killed. So where does that end? And that inversion and the kind of, the brain pickling. There's so many smart people have had their brains absolutely rotted by social media. And the humanity is gone, the common sense is gone, and, we're in a bit of an absurdist nightmare now.
You mentioned cost. War and national security operations have the highest secrecy.
Right.
For many obvious reasons I don't need to re-explain. The rush during an operation and right after to be sharing without much review. We know there's not a lot of review. If you post something within 30 minutes of it happening, we know there was very little thoughtful layers of review, and that puts things at risk because our adversaries might learn something from who was in or out of the room and how far they had to travel. There's something called mosaic theory, where if you get random different bits of information about an adversary, you can start piecing it together, to say nothing of what you can do with tech now. Should we take seriously the risk that the rush by the top people all the way up to the president to get this material out could sooner or later endanger our people in the field?
Well, I think the whole thing is careening off a cliff. And I think it's, as a few people have pointed out and you've slightly hinted at, it's not obvious that there's a plan behind any of these moments. Like, we're being fed a series of moments that are themselves disconnected moments that have no follow-up. And I'm put in the mind of this raid that happened in the fall in Chicago when they came down on the south side of Chicago. A helicopter landed on the roof of this apartment complex. They announced that they were arresting all these Tren de Aragua gang members. Half-naked kids were pulled out and zip-tied and left out in the cold. The net consequence of that was nothing. Nobody was indicted. 2 people, I believe, were had some kind of immigration violation and were sent back to Venezuela. I mean, the whole thing is people's lives were completely destroyed just for a social media moment.
Is there an antidote to that dynamic where spectacle literally seems to supplant reality?
It's hard to figure out what it is. I would say deep, urgent media literacy, like understanding, especially if you're older and you didn't grow up in social media, understanding how to take in provocative pieces of information and understand how seriously to take them or not to take them. The problem is you can't completely ignore them because people are getting shot in the face as a result of this, right? The point of the Minneapolis escalation was to have maybe not this precise moment, but a moment like this that could provoke conflict.
And do you think Trump seems to be the same or getting worse? Because when he starts posting 50, 100, 150 times, you talk about being pickled, that's more extreme than he even used to be.
Well, I think the problem is that in order to keep people engaged, both outraging them and exciting them, the stakes have to increase.
Right.
And so the question is, what happens next? What's now good enough beyond, shooting a mother of 3 in the face, frog marching a foreign leader off in a Nike tracksuit? Like, what's the next thing you have to do?
And that goes to the sort of addicted, mediated environment we're in, which Marshall McLuhan or anyone would say it is different from a slower thing. Long form, watching an hour is very different from that. Let's end on a lighter note. We all need it. What's your favorite reality show?
I think The Traitors right now. I think has the kind of light touch we could all use in this moment.